Welcome to Guerrillapreneur, the art of waging small business warfare podcast, brought to you by Sierra Consulting. An idea can launch a business, a strategy can take it global. In this podcast, we teach small businesses how to defeat corporate Goliaths who dominate their industry. In the story of David and Goliath, David defeated a much taller and stronger Goliath, not by fighting the giant in hand-to-hand combat, but by using technology, a slingshot. The slingshot allowed the smaller David to attack from a distance that thwarted the advantages that Goliath had over the smaller man. My name is Mark Peterson. I am a serial entrepreneur and managing executive at Sierra Consulting, a leading small business strategy and technology consulting firm. I am also author of the book Guerrillapreneur, Small Business Strategy for Davids Wanting to Defeat Goliath, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and in the Apple platform. Today's podcast is going to define what a guerrillapreneur is. It's going to give you some examples of businesses that have leveraged guerrillapreneur tactics to become Goliaths in their own right. And then we're going to delve down into everyday businesses and show you how they can use guerrillapreneur tactics to become dominant players. What is a guerrillapreneur? Guerrillapreneur is a combination of the words guerrilla and entrepreneur, and it is the name given to businesses that integrate a sharing and circular economic models into the core of their business to generate capital that will be invested in what I call slingshot technology. Now, first, let me make sure I am very clear on the definition of guerrillapreneur. What is a sharing economy? A sharing economy is an economic model in which individuals borrow or rent assets owned by someone else. The sharing economic model is most likely to be used when a price for a particular asset is high or the asset is not fully utilized at all times. For example, individuals who do not need a car or cannot afford it can use Uber to purchase transportation by the drive. Why buy an asset when it's not fully utilized and waste your capital? Buy what you need, use it as a service. Now, what is a circular economic model? The circular economic model promotes greater resource productivity by aiming to reduce waste and avoid pollution by design. Businesses generate waste of all types. Apple promotes billions of tons of waste when customers upgrade to the next iPhone. McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell generate food waste. Automotive manufacturers have thousands of miles of outdated cars in junkyards all over the country. Could these businesses have designed their business model to account for this waste and even turn this waste into a profit? Guerrillapreneurs not only believe the answer to this question is yes, they are zealots about the concept because they know turning waste into incremental profits can be used to invest in slingshot technology that can defeat the Goliaths in their industry. Now, what is this slingshot technology I keep talking about? Slingshot technologies help small businesses serve customers at the same or better price than what the Goliath serves the same customer sets. If a small business never perfects the slingshot technology, it will not have the capital to mount a campaign to defeat the giant. Now let's look at some businesses that have utilized these tactics and become giants in their own right. Let's look at the first business case example, Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford is the inventor of the assembly line, and he pioneered a circular loop system that let him improve employee wages and launch a separate company that still exists today. The Model T was made from wood and left behind tons of wood scrap. Instead of tossing the wood scrap, Henry Ford cooked it and removed the chemicals and made ash briquettes. The chemicals were reused in production, and the briquettes were sold as charcoal. In fact, the bagged charcoals became so popular, the product was launched as a separate business. Ford named the new company after the husband of a female family member, Kingsford. Kingsford Charcoals, yes, my favorite brand. The profit from the charcoals enabled Ford to increase the wages of his employees and improve productivity of the assembly line. Let's look at the next business case, Coca-Cola. Do you know it takes 95% less energy to produce recycled aluminum than virgin aluminum? And 60% less energy to produce recycled plastic than to use virgin plastic. Well, Coca-Cola sells approximately 12 billion bottles and cans a year, and they have 100% of their bottles and cans now that are fully recyclable. In 2014, 34% of the plastic Coke used was from recycled plastic, and 27.8% of Coke's plastic bottles were distributed in what they call plant bottle packaging, made up of 30% renewable materials from their plants. So they are reducing the amount of energy by collecting and recycling the very products that they make their beverages to be shipped in. Let's look at business case number 3, Unilever. Unilever eliminates waste from its manufacturing process by using smart sourcing, making that a priority from the very beginning of the manufacturing process. But they don't stop there. Some materials are reused on site, some are traded into other industrial supply chains, and some of the organic waste is composted. Achieving zero waste in Unilever's factory has saved the company $226 million. How about business case number 4? Frito-Lay, those delicious potato chips. Frito-Lay facilities in Turkey process waste from potatoes, corn, and broken chips into a biogas digester. And they produce also organic digestate. The biogas generates 35% of the facility's energy needs. The digestate is converted into compost and is used on the very fields that they collect their potatoes and at other local orchards. So they truly have a circular loop. Waste goes into creating power to reduce the energy demand on the very factories that make the chips, and the organic digestate is put back in the fields to make the soil rich to produce more potatoes and start the cycle all over again. Gives a new meaning to the Lion King circle of life. Now, business case number 5, Starbucks. When you think of Starbucks, you don't think of many recyclable waste products, but there are some. Starbucks works with a Japanese contact lens manufacturer to repurpose the spent coffee grounds into livestock feed, making those grounds more valuable than garden compost. And here's how they really reduce their energy output and their carbon footprint. The local suppliers who deliver coffee and other daily supplies to their Starbucks pick up the spent coffee grounds and drop those off at the recycling centers. So just like long-haul truckers who like to be full when they deliver and full when they go back, Starbucks has figured out how to best utilize their suppliers. Business case number 6, waste management. Well, dumping your waste seems like a pretty smelly job, But Waste Management has turned that business of dumping waste materials and has found the way to take waste and use it for its highest and best use. They take your waste and they can extract and make energy. They can create biogas. And they've created enough electricity from waste to power almost 1.1 million homes. That eliminates the need for approximately 21 million barrels of oil. At the end of 2009, they had increased their landfill to gas to energy plants to 124. That was up from 119 the year prior. So your waste through Waste Management is no longer waste, it's energy. Now, how about the last case? And for the last business case, we're going to go to the most entertaining place in the world, Walt Disney. You don't think about waste as a potential product when you think of Walt Disney, but when you contemplate all the restaurants and hotels that are on their park, in their parks, then you start to believe and see that there's potential for waste as a profit center. And so has Walt Disney. They send waste food, including grease, cooking oil, and table scraps, from select restaurants in their complex to nearby digestive biogas facilities owned and operated by Harvest Power. The organic waste is converted into renewable biogas, and that's used to generate electricity. The remaining solid material is processed into fertilizer. The energy generated helps power Central Florida, including the Walt Disney Resorts, hotels, and theme parks. Before we start and dig in on some of the ways that these sorts of tactics can be used in your everyday mom and pop businesses, I want to take a moment to talk to you about the Guerrillapreneur Service of the Month. Guerrillapreneur Service or App of the Month is an app that can help save you money, save you time, reduce waste, and put money back in your pocket. None of the services that I feature in this segment are sponsors. These are services that I've used as part of my entrepreneurial background that have paid dividends in my business. So the featured service for this month is one called youpromise.com. It's a terrific service that puts cash back in your pocket or cash invested into a 529 account for your kids' education. And it's very easy to use. You go to youpromise.com, register your credit cards. You can even sign up for a YouPromise credit card. And when you shop through their website at all the places that you normally would shop, Walmart.com, Amazon.com, any of the online retailers and even offline retailers, you get anywhere from 1 to even as high as 10% back in your pocket or invested in a 529 account for your kids' education. I joined youpromise.com in 1992 and got all of my relatives who don't have kids to sign up and link their purchases to my kids' education 529 account. So when they made purchases online or they purchased gasoline using the registered credit cards that they had registered at youpromise.com at places like Exxon or Mobil, that 2 to 5 to 10% that they got back went straight into their account, boosting the amount of money that they had for college. Now, how did this benefit me? When we launched one of our last startups, we had to buy a lot of equipment, a lot of office type equipment. We were buying scanners, we were buying fingerprint readers, and we could buy those from vendors who were registered on the YouPromise website. We would make the purchase for our business, And those points were placed into our account for our kids' education, for everyone involved with the startup. We purchased a lot of equipment and we generated a lot of cash for our kids' education. As an entrepreneur, you're putting a lot on the line. You're risking everything for great returns. With sites and services like You Promise, you can minimize some of the risk that others who are close to you, who are traveling with you on this journey, you can minimize the risk to their future by investing a little time and shopping through their site to get money back to invest in their future. So I really like this. For those entrepreneurs who are out there, give it a shot. And when you register cashback cards like Discover or the Chase card or even an American Express cashback card, you can double the amount of money you get back. 3 to 5% from a Chase card or 3 to 5% from a Discover card that they give you automatically will give you an additional 3 to 5% when you shop through You Promise with that same card. So you're getting close to 10% back each time you shop when you double up like that. And if you're like my last startup, when you're buying thousands of dollars worth of equipment monthly, those dollars can add up pretty quick and have a pretty substantial college fund built up while at the same time living your dream. YouPromise.com. Now, when we left off with the podcast, we were talking about how Guerrillapreneurs use the sharing economy, or buying products as a service, to reduce their cost so that they can invest in Slingshot Technology. We also talked about how Guerrillapreneurs can build their business model so that they take full advantage of the waste that is generated from their business and turn that into a profit center, or what some call a circular loop system. Guerrillapreneurs can build that in just like the business case companies that I alluded to earlier in the podcast. But I know you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm a small mom and pop. How could I design these sorts of concepts into my business? How could I take advantage of the waste and make that into a profit center? Well, let's start with some of your basic mom and pop businesses that you find in every city. The most common, a restaurant. We mentioned earlier how companies like Disney have taken advantage of their food waste and turned that into a way to reduce their energy cost. And restaurants can do the same. You have food waste, you have cooking oil, but I know you're thinking, I don't generate enough to put a dent in my energy costs. You may not, but when you think of the other restaurants that are in your local area, the local grocery stores, the local hotels, if each of you formed an association, you could generate enough waste where the combined output could have a substantial impact on the energy consumption and energy needs of all of those who are in the association. These sorts of things are already happening. In Paris, earlier this year, 80 businesses, restaurants, caterers, hotels, banded together to take their food scraps and turn it into biogas and compost. Now, they did this because they were facing down a law that was going to go into effect that would require them to recycle that waste. So instead of going alone, they banded together and have now benefited from having biogas and compost as a profit center to reduce their costs and energy needs. Now, what else could you do as a restaurant? Restaurants have to have commercial style kitchens. And those commercial style kitchens are a real asset to you, but many times they're underutilized. I know a lot of the local restaurants, mom and pops, where I live and grew up, open later in the day say 11, 12, they'll open up for lunch, and they'll close after dinner at 9 or 10 p.m., leaving many hours after they close where the assets are underutilized. One of the local entrepreneurs in my hometown took advantage of that and signed a deal with the local restaurant where he could use their commercial kitchen to bake cookies for his cookie company, because he was required to use a commercial kitchen if he wanted to get his product into several of the chain outlets. The cost of a commercial kitchen was cost prohibitive to him at the point where he had matured in his business plan, but by leveraging the underutilized asset of the local restaurant, he was able to produce the product in a commercial kitchen at a cost far less than making that capital investment. And it was good for the restaurant. It produced an additional revenue stream from times when the business was idle. This concept of leveraging a vital asset like a commercial kitchen has started to catch on, where you're seeing commercial kitchens that are scattered all over cities now being linked together and being made available to other startups, just like the case of the cookie company I alluded to earlier. So the Uber-style model, where you will have an app where startups are looking for commercial kitchens that are available for them to produce their product, are popping up. And there's great app, Food Corridor, where these sorts of food entrepreneurs can use to find commercial kitchens in their area where they can use for baking and cooking purposes. So let me repeat that app. Food Corridor, Corridor. Great app, online marketplace for shared kitchen space. Great way to maximize the utility of assets that typically go unutilized for 8 to 10 hours a day. What else can restaurateurs do? Well, one trend are pop-up restaurants, where you don't have a restaurant all year round. You basically pop them up when there's a great occasion to have it. According to a 2014 survey of 40,000 food and beverage events on the Eventbrite platform, they found that these pop-up events are the fastest growing trend within the food and beverage category, increasing by a frequency of 82% from the previous year. It's not just a fad. It's a growing movement of people who are seeing the opportunity to take advantage of commercial kitchens and create pop-up restaurants. What if you own an accounting firm, a consulting practice, or even a law office, and you have extra space, an unused office, an unused conference room? Can you make money off that? Why not? Share that space with your clients. Law, consulting, accounting firms also having a lot of administrative labor and equipment, just like restaurants, that go underutilized. They have receptionists, they have copiers, they have administrative assistants. Why not market these physical employees as virtual employees to startups and small businesses? This could be a great lead generator for future clients. Now, I grew up in Alabama, and there are a lot of farming entrepreneurs out there. And I know they're thinking, Mark, how could you possibly apply sharing economy or circular loop economics to the farming business? Well, the sharing economy has finally come to farming. For those farmers who have struggled to compete with the corporate farms, you now have a path forward. There's an app called machinerylink.com, and they let farmers rent idle farm equipment. So if you're a small farmer looking to increase the size of your cotton, potato, or corn crops, and you need more farm equipment to be able to process the larger crops without bringing on additional labor, now is the time, because you can use Machinery Link to go in and find underutilized assets and basically buy the service and use what you need to process your crops. When you're done, it goes back into the inventory for other farmers to take advantage of the idle asset. So farmers are essentially sharing an asset just like an Uber driver would share their car. That's unique. So if I'm an entrepreneur today, I'm excited because I have many options for sharing and growing my business without having to invest in assets day one. I can use a commercial kitchen, produce a great product, but not own that commercial kitchen. I can finish using that commercial kitchen and find ways to make my waste into a profit center. It starts, though, with the business design. Doing all of that as part of your business case design and turning that liability into a profit center. Well, we've reached the end of the first podcast. I want to thank you for listening to Guerrillapreneur, the art of small business warfare. In the next podcast, we're going to focus on the steps for building a slingshot capability. Now that you know what a Guerrillapreneur is and how to start saving that extra money to invest in technology that will disrupt the market, we need to know how to disrupt the market. If you enjoy this podcast, you may also enjoy my book, Guerrillapreneur, Small Business Strategy for Davids Wanting to Defeat Goliath. Check it out. I go into a lot more detail and a lot more business cases showing you ways that Guerrillapreneurs have taken on the giants and become giants in their own right. Thanks again, and please join us for our next podcast.